Good morning. Great stuff so far, right? Brilliant. So my name is Sacha Dekker. You just heard that. And in the coming, say, 30 minutes, I'm going to tell you a story that is going to make you more resilient and that is going to help you look at the things you say to yourself on a daily basis and how that impacts what you're capable of. Now, for the start of this story, we need to go back in time just a bit. It's January 2009, and life is smiling at me. I just moved into this gorgeous apartment in Rotterdam, back in the Netherlands where I'm from, and I have this amazing role as a senior learning and development leader in Shell. I travel the world and I work with governments and senior D leaders. I'm loving this. And then my father gets diagnosed with cancer, and within 7 days of that diagnosis, he dies. Now, I was, without any doubt, the textbook example of a daddy's girl, and his death was absolutely devastating to me. As such, when 2 days before he passed away, my brother and I are looking into music for the funeral, and all of a sudden, I have this weird woozy feeling and my vision is a bit blurry. I instantly dismiss it as stress. In the months that follow though, the wooziness, the distorted vision keeps coming back until the point that I realize I probably need to go see a doctor. And I do, and she refers me to a neurologist. And after a massive batch of testing, it turns out I suffer from a rather rare form of epilepsy. Hence me wanting Laurie to change the slide. It was filled with numbers and it was moving and it was causing me to have seizures. Now my epilepsy came with what they call silent seizures. I could be standing in front of a room like this, I have 5 seizures in 15 minutes and nobody would notice. I wouldn't lose consciousness, I wouldn't stare, I wouldn't stop talking. No one would notice. I would notice. The thing about epileptic seizures is that they wear you out. They're absolutely exhausting. Over time, I tried about 20 different kinds of medication and combinations. Unfortunately, I wasn't just suffering from a rare form of epilepsy. I was also part of the 10% of people that don't respond to medication. But you know what? I was determined this wasn't going to impact my life. And so in October 2012, I moved to Dublin, joined another company, and I was a very highly performing epileptic, no doubt about it. As the seizures were increasing though, what I was finding is that my visual memory was getting impacted. So I could work with someone for 2 or 3 days, see them 2 weeks later, and I wouldn't recognize them. Now, the moment they would tell me their name, I'd instantly remember everything about them, where they sat, what they'd done, what program it was, everything. But by face, I would have no idea who they were. At one point, I remember talking to my friend in the Netherlands, and I was telling her about this lunch that I had at this fantastic new place with some of my friends here from Dublin. And as I'm describing the place, she goes, "You mean the Evoca by the garden centre?" And I'm like, "How do you know?" Turns out we'd been there the month before. Thinking you're losing your mind is one of the scariest things you can ever go through. For me, intelligence was such an important part of my identity that no longer being able to rely on what I remembered, what I thought I knew, was absolutely crushing. As such, when in January 2014, my neurologist for the first time mentioned the possibility of neurosurgery, I was open to it. Now, obviously, when you hear brain surgery, your mind instantly goes to everything that's scary. And a bit of McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. And I realized that, is this going to be okay? Is this scary? Can I do this? How dangerous is this? However, after doing all of my research online, after talking to my neurologist, talking to the surgeon, this really is the appendix surgeries of brain surgery. As much as brain surgery can ever be a routine, this is the one. to the point where I only had to stay in hospital for 3 nights. Surgery on Monday, walk out on Thursday, take it easy for a little while, go back to work. All good. The alternative was being fully demented by the time I was 50. All of a sudden, it becomes a fairly easy choice. And so my surgery was scheduled for Monday, the 24th of August, 2015. I checked in on the Sunday, said goodbye to my brother and my best friend, and I was first on the list that Monday morning. The last thing I remember is the anaesthetist holding my hand and telling me to count back from 10. The first thing I remember is 2 nurses telling me they're gonna roll me over. I was in the intensive care because at some point during the surgery, I'd had a massive bleed in my brain and my entire left side was completely paralyzed. I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit without support. My face wasn't working, I couldn't smile. Not that there was a lot to smile about. And I couldn't roll myself over in bed. Before this all happened, before this bleed, I absolutely would have described myself as being resilient. This wasn't necessarily the first punch life threw at me. I grew up with an emotionally abusive mother in a less than financially stable home. Basically, eviction notice were the first words I could write. One of my first boyfriends was violently aggressive and abusive. In my 30s, I'd had 3 failed IVF attempts and a subsequently failed marriage. I'd held my father's hand as he was dying, and I'd been diagnosed with epilepsy. Surely I knew how to handle shit. I learned early on in life that you don't decide the hand you get dealt, only how you play the cards. Now let me tell you though, there is nothing you can ever go through in life that is going to prepare you for the absolute despair, the hopelessness, and the loneliness that you feel when all of a sudden you become completely dependent on other people. I went from traveling the world to now having to be hoisted from my bed into a wheelchair. Because for the first 6 weeks, I didn't have the strength and the balance to do that myself. I went from talking about 5-year strategies to now hoping on a Saturday morning that there would be a nurse available to help me shower because I couldn't do that myself. And let me tell you, whomever came up with the myth that if you just don't wash your hair long enough, it'll wash itself, big fat lie. Don't try it, I did that for you, doesn't work. 2 weeks after the bleed, one of my medical team came by to tell me that based on the last MRI that they did, I had to start looking at nursing homes. Because the chances of me ever walking again, the chances of me ever functioning independently again were highly unlikely. I was 42. There was no chance I was going to spend my life in a nursing home. And so I decided right then and there that I was not just going to walk, I was going to walk on the Great Wall of China. Now that might seem like such a random goal to all of you, but for me it made perfect sense. My dad and I were going to go to China. We booked a trip together. It was going to be our big daddy-daughter trip. It was booked for March. He died in January. The Great Wall of China was my only goal, and I was going to achieve it no matter what. Now, over the 9 months that I was in hospital, I've seen so many people with the same condition give up. And I've had a lot of people tell me very kindly that they are not sure they would have been able to do what I did. And I thought about that a lot, because I'm not special. I wasn't born resilient. I didn't wake up one morning thinking, boy, do I feel resilient today. And so upon reflecting, I honestly believe that resilience is a choice. I believe in that moment, when the challenge ahead of you seems bigger than anything you've ever seen, when you have no idea how you're going to get over this, when, like in my case, you're not able to do the simplest of things yourself, when you can't go to the toilet by yourself because you don't have the balance to do that. And when the first time that you do secretly try that, you fall and you find yourself on the floor of a bathroom unable to get up, that, in that moment, is when you need to make a choice. You either get bitter or you get better. Now, bitter is the logical choice. Bitter is the one you want to make. Bitter allows you to curl up in bed, cry, and ask, why me? Why did this happen to me? I didn't deserve this. Choosing better requires a lot of courage. Choosing better means that you push yourself to get out of bed every single morning. Even when you want to stay in bed, curl up and cry, you still get up. Choosing better means that you push yourself to do another set of your exercises, even when your body is in so much pain and is just begging you to give up. Better is scary because you might fail. But here's the thing, better is hope. Better is the only choice you have to ever get back something of the life that you had and the life that you want to have back. Over the course of my recovery, there have been 3 defining moments that I would like to share with you. The first one is very much about mindset and everything that we just talked about and the things that we say to ourselves. So after 5 months in the general hospital, I moved into the rehabilitation hospital here in Dunleary. And so one day, about 6 weeks in, I just moved to walking with a single stick. My physiotherapist decides that we're going to venture outside of the gym for a bit. Now in the rehabilitation hospital, in the middle, there is a garden, and you can walk around it in a square, like a quadrangle. And it's scary because we've only done this once before, but hey, every day is a chance for a victory. And so we walk outside, and I need to tell you, I have been blessed with an amazing team of physiotherapists throughout my recovery. They are my absolute heroes. I wouldn't be here today without them. And so we're walking, and every side of the quadrangle is exactly 20 meters, and then it's an additional 21.5 meters back into the gym. Trust me, I know exactly. And so we're walking, and we're about halfway at the first side of the quadrangle, and I have a stumble. Nothing much, nothing major, I'm not falling, but I stumble. And it crashes my confidence. And all I can say is, what if I can't do this anymore? What if my brain just doesn't know how to walk anymore? What if my body isn't capable of this? My physio looks at me, she points at a chair about 10 meters away, and she goes, Sacha, we'll walk over there and then we'll sit down. We walk, and I just keep saying, I just don't think I can do this anymore, and I stumble again. We somehow manage to make it to the chair. She sits me down, she looks at me and she says, Sacha, it's very simple. Your brain knows exactly how to walk. Your body by now is strong enough to walk. The only thing standing between you and walking a perfect lap around the quadrangle is you and what you're currently telling yourself. So it's very simple. I'm going to walk back to the office. I need to get some paperwork. By the time I'm back, you better make a decision. Either you believe you can do this and we'll do it, or I'm going to get your wheelchair and I'm going to bring you back to the ward. Looking back, I believe that if in that moment I would have chosen to go back to the ward, it probably would have set me back at least 2 months. I didn't. I changed what I told myself into, I believe I can do this. And I did. And I walked a perfect lap around the quadrangle. Your body believes what you tell it. Like Michael Jordan says, in order to do great things, we must expect great things of ourselves. Your output is based on whether or not you tell yourself you're capable of doing this. The second thing is very much around what defines us. So by now, I'm in hospital for about 8 months. It's early April, and my walking is getting better all the time. My doctors are happy, it's all fantastic. But I'm not doing so well mentally. I'm having this massive crisis of confidence and identity. Because who am I if I'm no longer able to do all the things that I did before? Who am I if I can't just get up and do whatever I want? Do I still have any value to the world, to my friends? Do I have any value if I feel I'm being a burden all the time? Will people accept a facilitator with a disability? Do I still have any value? Will I still be able to contribute? Am I worth anything? And if the answer to that is no, then why am I still here? Why does it matter? And then one day I get talking with the head of recreational therapy, and he tells me that his department and his volunteers are really struggling with their brand. Like even his colleagues kind of don't know what they're doing. They're like the volunteers and they do something with drawing or something. And I see an opportunity and I jump on it. And I offer to run a workshop for him and his volunteers around formulating a brand statement and your own personal and team brand. And it changed everything. Because while it was just a 2-hour workshop, and it's something I could have done in my sleep, I remembered who I was. I stood there and I remembered that my walking isn't perfect, my arm may never recover, but what makes me, me, the ability to stand in front of a room, to facilitate people to their aha moment and to coach, what I'm truly passionate about is still there. I can still do this. And it changed everything. All of a sudden I knew what I wanted and that I would go back to work and that I would be able to impact people again. And I think this is so important for everyone. Know what defines you. Know what makes you, you. Because you can only lose what you have. You can never lose who you are. The third moment is very much around believing there's always a way. So after I spent 9 months in hospital, I was in the very fortunate position of spending a bit of time back in the Netherlands with my best friend. And it was like the perfect in-between, because I could practice living by myself again, but I had the safety blanket of her coming home at night. All good. After 6 weeks, though, it really was time for me to move back to Ireland and live by myself. In the very first week after I came home, my biggest fear, the biggest fear of anyone with reduced mobility came true. One evening, I'm sitting, I'm watching a DVD, I walk over to the DVD player, I change it, and as I walk back, I lose balance and I'm on the floor. Now I know what you're all thinking. Who still watches DVDs? Very stupid, never again. So I find myself on the floor. Here I am, and I know that I shouldn't panic. And so I do what I do in situations like these. I call my best friend. Now here's something you need to know about her. She is an amazing woman. She and I have been friends for 22 years. She was there when my dad died, literally in the room. And she found a way to travel to Dublin at least twice a month during the time I was in hospital. On top of that, she has this amazing gift of always knowing what to say at the exact right moment. And so I call her and she asked me the $1 million question. Sacha, do you know how to get up? Yes, I think I do. Okay, run me through the steps. I take off my splint, I get on my knees, I crawl to the sofa, I get my good leg under me and I pivot on. She goes, good, that's exactly what you're going to do right now, and then you're going to call me back. I called her back within 5 minutes. It turns out that the getting up actually wasn't the most difficult part. The most difficult part was what was to come, which is standing up from the sofa. And for a little while, I sat there and I told myself, maybe I don't have to. Sofa looks really comfortable. Maybe I can just sleep here tonight. You know what? I'm bruised. I'm tired. I'm lying to myself, and I know it. I know I need to stand up. And I did, and I retraced my steps. The following morning when I woke up, I realized that while it was awful and I wouldn't want to repeat it, in a way, falling was actually really good. Because I knew now that there was always a way to get up. There's always a way. And that really helped me a couple of months ago when I was at a conference in Cascais. We're staying in this amazing hotel. And for anyone who hasn't been to Cascais, it's paradise. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, this hotel, like unfortunately many others, is in no way equipped for people with disabilities. Their idea of a disability accessible bathroom is putting a chair in this very high bathtub. But what do you know? It's Cascais, it's 30 degrees, I'm meeting this whole bunch of vice presidents. Surely I can't be the smelly girl in the room. And so I decide in the morning, every day is an opportunity for a victory. And so there's the bathtub, and then there's a little plateau. And I see this opportunity, I'm like, I can do this. So I sit on the plateau, I swing in my legs, there's nothing to hold on to, but I manage to stand up. I'm really proud of myself. I do a little song in the shower, which is something no one should ever have to hear. And then the moment I turn off the shower, I realize I really didn't think this through. I'm now standing in a wet and slippy bathtub. There is nothing to hold on to. And for a moment, I literally don't know how to get out. I have no idea. And then I start repeating to myself, there's always a way. There's always a way. I must have said that for minutes, just out loud to myself. There's always a way. It was dangerous and scary, but I got out and I smelled beautifully the entire day. I remember vividly when the clinical director of the rehabilitation hospital came by to do her assessment. So she runs me through all of these tests, and at the end, I tell her of my goal to walk on the Great Wall of China. She looks at her paperwork, she looks at me and she says, Sacha, I have over 20 years of experience with cases like yours. You can absolutely be on the Great Wall of China in your wheelchair. Happiness, she says, can only come with acceptance. And it's about time you start being honest to yourself and other people start being honest with you. You are never going to walk on the Great Wall of China. It's just not going to happen. And the sooner you realize that, and the sooner you accept that, the sooner your recovery can start. There's always a way. And because of that, 2 weeks ago, on the 24th of August, to the day, 2 years after the bleed, this happened. I did this! Don't let anyone ever tell you what you are and aren't capable of. Set your goal, believe in yourself, work to become the person who can reach that goal, smash that goal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sacha. Does anyone have any questions for Sacha about her experience or the amazing story she's just told?
Have you showed that video to the director?
She lives in Bahrain now. I tried to track her down, but yeah, it's going to get there for sure. Yes. I rubbed it into the faces of a number of people. Yes. Any other questions?
Did you ever get a chance to talk to that consultant about her negative motivation?
You mean the one at the start?
Yeah, I told her that it was actually to say I'll show her the fact that you said you're never going to get there.
Oh yeah, no, that's what you just
That's-
asked. Yeah, no, so she lives in Bahrain now, so no, I haven't been able to talk to her. Okay.
You leave all of us almost speechless.
Thank you.
Sacha, fabulous story. Thank you for sharing. It's very inspirational. I'm curious about the importance of your support system, where we've been considering growth mindset and self-talk. But I hear along the way that you have this amazing friend that we
Yes.
would like to adopt, and also the physiotherapist walking around the quadrant.
Yes.
So there were points, those pause points, where it sounds like that was a sweet point of choosing the shift from can I do it, I'm not sure I can do it, into doing it. So I'd love to know what they had for you in that moment to help you do that shift, the proactive process of having an amazing support system. What were their attributes?
So I think for the physio, very much to what I said, the fact that she literally said, you're going to decide whether or not you can do this, because you can, but it's up to you. And I think from a support system point of view, I think what you need to understand is that it's as tough for them as it is for you. Because this is a lonely journey. People can't understand what you're going through. They can only try to be there. And I think that's important. And so for my best friend to just listen, to be calm, but also to say, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what to tell you right now.
Yeah.
But then at the right time telling me, do you know how to get up? Yeah.
And then I'm curious, sorry, just to add on, do you feel that there was an attraction to you in their strength and resilience as a support system? While they won't have experienced being...
No, because I try to also be strong for them. Like you want people to see you at your best, and yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
I was just wondering, you mentioned that it was very important for you to get back in front of an audience, and that's how you defined
Yeah.
yourself. I wonder what your thoughts are in that. Are there any dangers you see maybe in defining yourself in relation to your job or your role?
I think for me it was about my passion. It's what I'm truly passionate about learning and development. I'm truly passionate about coaching people and helping them become the best they can be. And so to be able to do that again, that defined me. Yeah. I think that making your work in itself, your role part of your identity, is absolutely dangerous. But I think defining yourself is more around who am I? Who am I in the core of my being?
And the reason I asked that is because my husband had a stroke in January of this year and had some significant impact as well. And his profession or role and his passion as well involves working with his hands and things that, well, for a set period of time, are possible or not possible, although they're improving all of the time. And I'm just interested to think about the ways in which people define themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And how that
Mhm.
in itself has an impact
Yes.
then on their impetus to really
Okay.
drive themselves.
So I think that's very much attached to something physical, whereas I'm talking more about like your mindset, like who are you as a person?
Yeah, that's I'm curious
Yeah.
and how those two link in terms of how you define yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a discussion in itself that potentially you might say more about.
I think it is very hard when you have that key thing taken away from you. I was at a session a few months ago in England where the guest speaker, the after dinner speaker, was a blind adventurer. And when I say blind adventurer, Steve flies planes, and Steve drives Ferraris and all these things which say, hang on, you're blind, how can you do that? And of course he has a support system there, but he also captained the English blind soccer team. And the reason I mention that is because Steve went blind when he was between about 9 and 11 years of age, and his passion was soccer. His vision for himself when he was 7 was to play soccer for England, but of course he couldn't. So for him it was actually about saying, okay, I can't do it that way, but I can find another way to do it. I can't do things the way I could, yet if I think differently, instead of, if I can use your husband example, instead of sitting there getting angry at his hands, saying, okay, that's not going to happen in the same way it did, what can I do?
Yeah.
And so changing the view, changing the perspective to find a new way of looking at it, and a new way of doing things.
Sheryl Sandberg wrote an amazing book about this called Plan B. It's very much around option A or option B, I think. Option A isn't available anymore, so I need to make the best of what I do have and believe that that is going to make me happy too. Yes. No, go ahead.
I very much, I thought you spoke amazingly well, and I think we were all dumbstruck and that may be part of why at the less questions. I think you've touched many people on the inside, internally. And I think one thing as well I would say from resilience, from personal experience, would be that sometimes people help you when you've just had the car crash and you actually need a few weeks of recovery. So when all of us in the room want to be your friend, want to be that physio, that sometimes you have to say, look, is the person still got loads of blasters on them and bruises, and maybe we need to pick the right time as well, because you can have the best intentions, but if someone had told you to get up the day after,
that doesn't.
Then you failed. Then sometimes you need to say it was when you failed when you were at home watching a DVD, knowing you could do it.
Yeah.
And I would just say sometimes I would have found it a difficult experience. People were telling me to do stuff when I was still bleeding. I needed to actually to heal the right person at the right time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you.
Sacha, you've talked about the support system, and we have obviously a lot of determination to get you through. And you've talked about making choices, positive choices, a way of getting through. Earlier, Shane talked about talking to yourself. And a couple of times in the story, you actually talked about talking to yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, how important is that to you, the idea of actually talking to yourself, and what do you think's going on there what's the process?
So one of the most important things that I see as talking to yourself is expressing gratitude. 2 weeks after the bleed, when I still wasn't able to do anything, I went back into my routine of, at the end of every day, writing up 5 things that I'm grateful for. And that first time was very much around, a nurse brought me fluffy towels. The sun was shining. Someone came over to talk to me and tell me I'm doing great. But I believe that that is self-talk as well. It's focusing on what you do have rather than what you don't have. Yeah.
And there's something about saying the same thing to yourself over and over.
Yeah, there's always a way.
So,
that absolutely helped me to get out of that bathtub, no doubt. Probably still would have been there. I said, that definitely helped me get out of that bathtub. No, I believe it's an affirmation to yourself that you're saying, there is a way. I've done this before. I was on the floor and I managed to get up. There is always a way to do something. There's always a way to get the result. Yeah.
So you're kind of repeating the same phrase over and over
again.
I'm just interested to what do you think is going on there when you do that?
I think it's meditation. I think you just get into a meditative state of just focusing on one thing, not letting your mind, as Shane was saying about the spotlight, you can't multitask. And that is also around that. So it's about not getting distracted, not letting all of the other thoughts that are like, yeah, but you're in a bathroom and it's sweating, you don't know how to get out. And because it's easy to get into this is shit. Why is life like this? Why can't I do something simple like get out of a bathtub? You need to drown out all of the negative and focus on there's always a way.
Very good. So it'd be interesting to relate that back to the brain function discussion. Yeah, it's really good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sacha.
Ladies first, sorry, hon.
Before the positive self-talk, there was that vulnerability.
Yes.
You voiced, I can't do this, or do you think that was an important part as well, to allow yourself to declare that and for other people to see that, and the breakthrough then of the help from others? So a lot of people in organisations, particularly depending on the culture, maybe could recover sooner if they allowed themselves to do that sooner.
I think you do need to be honest with yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Brené Brown actually says that vulnerability is the biggest form of courage. And I think that's true, and it's scary, but I think there was a wonderful moment. Back to Qashqai, actually a really good moment that involves someone in this room. So we were having lunch, and I went to walk inside, and this wonderful person said to me, I will get your plate. And I was like, you can't do that, you're a vice president. And she said to me something very powerful. She said, Sacha, it would make me really happy if you would allow me to do that for you. And I think that's what help is about. It's about saying, you know what, I know I'm vulnerable because I'm asking for it, but thank you. You just made a difference. So yeah.
So my question was just in relation to your self-talk. Do you find that the nature, the content, the tone of your self-talk changed with the evolution of your illness, or was it always there?
It was always there. It was absolutely, from the moment they told me I had to start looking at nursing homes, that is the moment I decided, no, I'm walking again, I'm walking on the Great Wall of China. That doesn't mean that there haven't been difficult times. Of course there have been times when I was like, but what if I can't? What if this isn't going to work? And I think part of resilience that's really important is that you shouldn't try to be positive all the time when you're not feeling it. So research, and I'm sure Shane can talk about that, has shown that people who are like putting up a front are actually becoming more depressed. I had many a Saturday morning where I cried thinking, I'm supposed to wake up in my bed after a great night out. Instead, I'm here in hospital waiting for a nurse to come and help me shower. It's not supposed to be like this. I never did the why me, because I believe there is no answer to that, and that is just this big black hole that you lose yourself in. But sure, I've had times where I was like, this sucks, and I think that that's okay. And you need to be able to do that as long as you don't drown in it, as long as you pick yourself up and go back to, but this is my goal. Yeah.
Can I just add, you didn't wait for a defining moment to choose to be resilient.
No.
You've always been this type of person who is resilient. Can you give advice to people in the room that you don't have to wait for that defining moment to all of a sudden decide to be this individual?
I think it's a choice. Do you let something define you, or do you take control? And this is very much about growth and fixed mindset. Like something's happening, do I allow that to define who I am and the outcome of this? Or do I decide that I'm going to take control, and I might not control what's happening to me, but I can always control how I respond to it. And that response in itself is going to empower me to get through this.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
You've just answered it, but I'm wondering, even as I watch that, how important do you think it was for you to actually walk on the wall in the end?
How important was that? Had that not happened 2 weeks ago, I would have lived. There's no doubt about that. It's just something that I wanted to do. It was just, so the first goal I set myself was to walk down Dunleary Pier, 1.5 kilometers. Like this was a couple of 100 meters, 1.5 kilometers down the pier in front of my house. And so people are saying to me, that isn't going to happen. Now that was exceptionally important because that was to the day a year after the bleed. And that was when I had just gone back to work and I was still very much like, okay, what's going to happen? Is there more recovery? That was exceptionally important. This was just, I did this. I proved everyone wrong. I did this. Yeah. Cool. Lunch?
Okay.